Welcome back to the Black Ice. Now today we're getting away from hockey for a little bit. I did a video a while ago where I had a modded controller or adjusted controller, and a couple people wanted to see it, so I figured I might as well not keep people hanging and just do it because I don't play 2K anymore. Now the controller is kind of cheesy, but it's not really a modded controller. It's just an adjusted controller that helps you out a little bit. I wish I had thought about this when I used to play the golf game, because the way that I did the controller, the golf game is actually perfect. It's a better modded controller for playing golf. So we use it for 2K just because the concept is virtually the same. So let's get right into it. Oh, make sure you like, subscribe, and all that stuff, man. I shouldn't have to tell you. Let's get into it. Alright, so this is the quote-unquote modded controller. It's not really modded, it's just DIY. If you know how a controller works, then concepts like this make sense. So all this is a bunch of zip ties, and it allows you to control the right stick in a particular fashion, which in my idea was to make it slower. So no matter how much I pull it down, it acts as a slow movement because this is restricting how hard I can pull it down, and it releases by itself, etc. So when I pull it down and I hold it, it's almost always green. No matter how fast I pull it down, it's almost always green, because once you catch the ball, and the biggest thing about right stick is you have to completely catch the ball, or else it's going to give you a fast motion start, etc. So once you catch the ball, you pull it down, hold it, and then let it go. And you use LT or whatever it is you use your time, your release. So you just hold it down, LT, your release, whatever it is. But all it is a bunch of zip ties, and it allows you to then get greens. It's weird, but it works, and I thought about it because the way the controller works. Now it works best on an elite controller because you are holding down RB the entire time. Because of the way these zip ties are, you are holding down RB the entire time. Now this is a regular controller, and if I do it on a regular controller, you're gonna hold down RB, and once you hold down RB and use the stick, it's a pass. It's more of a pass in the game because RB actually means something or is used in the game. I made it one time, my first time, with just the zip ties on a regular controller, and in shoot around it was working perfect. But once I went in the game is like, well, you have RB held, so now once you press this, you're trying to pass, so it won't shoot. So it'll just be useless. So that's why it works best if you use an elite controller or a controller that you can map. This RB does nothing now. It's just mapped to nothing. So if it's held down, it doesn't matter. Now, I break a lot of controllers because I play FIFA and NHL. And when you do that, you break the click in. You break a whole bunch of stuff. But then some controllers just die. Like for instance, this is my Afterglow controller. My kid broke the RB, which then would be perfect for me to do this with, but I just found this, and I was like, oh, I could have used this, even though I had it. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to show you how to do it with this controller because RB is not there. I can show you with this too, but it's not going to be useful in the game. So we're going to do it. I'm going to show you with this. So all you really need is like 2 zip ties. I only have 8-inch zip ties, so if you have a 10-inch zip tie, that'll work because it'll wrap all the way around the controller. So if you look, this goes around and wraps around all the way, but because it's not long enough, it's barely reaching. So for this, I'm going to need 2 zip ties, but I have these laying around, so it doesn't really matter. Alright, so you wrap the zip ties around the controller, all the way around, XXX. So when it's around, you want to adjust and tighten them. I can't do this with one hand, but you tighten them to the point where they stay here. They stay along the edges of the controller. All right. See how they're tight to the controller? I'm going to make these tighter in a little bit, but I can't do it with one hand. So you make them tighter so they don't move. The only place they can move is left to right. And left to right is the adjustment that you're going to have to make depending on in the game. When you start shooting and shoot around, you're going to have to adjust this to try to hit the center. And once you hit the center, you can keep it at that point. And once you hit the center of the shot meter, you can keep it at that point. Usually, it's around here, like right at the edge of the controller. You see the edge of the circle of the controller right here? Usually, this lines up and just barely covers the edge, and that's where you keep it. But for you, it might be different. But that for me, that's where it stays. The edge of the controller right there is where I keep it, and I tighten it right there, and then I practice. Now, what I also like to do is I also like to take another zip tie and put it in here. And tie it here, because then it makes all my shots slow. Because on a controller, the actual pulling down doesn't really affect your speed. It's like the last 20% of the controller that affects the speed. So if your controller hits like this, it's too fast. Your controller has to come down like this in order for it to be a good shot. So if your controller comes down like this, you're too fast. Once it hits the bottom, you're too fast. So that concept made me realize if I put one down here, then I don't really hit the bottom hard. I always pull it down. See, and it's all pulled down at a steady pace. It's not going straight to the bottom. It's going down at a steady pace, which is what I normally pull it down anyway. So this is just a buffer. But let me finish doing this and I'll show you. All right, so I made these really tight. You can barely see them move. And I put one zip tie here. It's usually right about here. This is going to take some experimenting on your part, but once you get it, you get it. And so normally this is off to the left. This controller is off to the left a little bit, which is fine, but we're going to have to adjust it side to side anyway. So when you come down with this controller, because it's not the same as the Elite, you could take this part off. You could take these off. So it'll pop back by itself. So the Elite goes back by itself. This, when you do it this way, it'll most likely stay there. So you're gonna have to pull a shot, score, and then push it back up. Or else, when you're back on defense, he'll hold his hand up the entire time. But if you pull it down and leave it there, let's say you were going on offense and you want to keep it there, because of the last update they did, you can't just keep it there. Otherwise, that would be perfect. As soon as you caught it, and you would shoot it perfectly every time. But because of the last update, if you shoot before you catch the ball with the right stick, it'll always be off. It'll always be too fast. That's just the update they did. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you some gameplay with it. All right, so we've loaded up NBA, and this is the same controller we just made. You can see all the parts we just made up, or mocked up, or modded, adjusted, whatever you want to call it, man. It's not 100%, so I don't consider it a modded controller, and you still have to be able to pull the controller down at a certain pace in order to do it. It's just, once you find it, it's really, really, really ridiculously good. There's no real error for it. So we're going to go, I mean, you're probably going to have to adjust left or right depending on how, wherever you pull it down, it lands. For me, I know where it's supposed to be, right in between that circle. So most likely this is going to be pretty accurate when I start off. So let's go give it a try. All right, so mine is slightly right. Mine is right, so I got to push it and make it go left, or move the zip ties to the left. That way it goes there. Still slightly at left. There you go. Slightly left. There you go. All right, so I just locked it in basically to the position I think I'm supposed to be at. What you're gonna see me make is a lot more slightly, a lot more slightlies, and then get a bunch of greens. There you go. Go. There you go. It's about moving it to wherever. There's the two zip ties that's on either side. So if I'm missing slightly, if I'm missing left, I have to push the zip ties to the right so that it moves the joystick, moves the joystick and locks it in to a certain spot. So you're gonna have to move it around to find yours. But as you can see, I found mine. See, but the thing is, right, with the meter on, it's you can find your shot. But with the meter off, it's a different shot. So you have to experiment and move it around and see where it says slightly wherever. You have to move it around and try to find it as well. So with the meter on, you know where it's going to be. You know how to adjust it. With the meter off, you get an extra bonus with it off. But you're going to have to experiment and learn where you put you move your zip ties, whether it's left, right, etc., because it changes the shot completely. You know, so it's just one of those things. But with the meter on, you make more slightly. So if you're missing with the meter on, slightly goes in. With the meter off, slightly is very rarely going. But with the meter off, you make so many more greens. So it's an adjustment for you. All right, let's see if we can. Let me show you. See if I can go show you what I mean. Like right there, you saw me pretty much locked in on where I needed to be to get the most greens. But let's turn the meter off. And then you're gonna see me really miss because the meter is different. I don't know why it's different. It changes direction. Like you would think if you make it with the meter on, all you do is turn the meter off and it's the same. It's not. I don't know why. It's just not. So we're gonna have to try to find it. I don't know if I'm gonna spend the time to do it, but I'm just gonna show you that it's going to be really drastically different. I'm not gonna find the time. You gotta find the time doing your adjustments and going through all that. I've already done that with the Elite controller. I don't shoot with the meter on because that Elite controller is adjusted for the slightlies of the meter. It's slightly right, so which means there's the next one slightly left. See, it's a lot harder to adjust it, but once you find it, you're good. See, so once you find it, you can hit the centers better, but you gotta really hone it in. There you go. See? But that's all it is. I mean, you adjust it accordingly. You find your zone. The different controllers react differently. Like my other controller is not as springy, right? So the other controller I have is the like cheap Walmart controller. When I tried it with that one, it doesn't pop back up because this controller, it stays. So if I were to hold it down, it'll stay down here and the shot will go wide. For instance, I'm holding it down now and the shot's wide left. So if you hold it down before the shot comes, it always goes very bad. I actually made that one. Shocking. So that's all it is. It's nothing special. It just improves your accuracy where you don't have to really worry about it. You're always going to be within the area of the meter. So even if you're not, people won't be able to really tell if you're doing it or not because you're not going to hit it green all the time, but you're going to come very close to slightlies if you use this method. Now, if you know how to adjust it and get it where you are, you're going to get a lot of greens. You know what I mean? But that's how it is. That's all it is. All right, guys. Appreciate you joining me. See you next time.